this is 100,000 books written by rabbis. You're not wearing a kippah. Why would you be interested in this? And I said, I paid the money. Are you not going to give it to me? And, I got all defensive. And he says, no, I'm seriously, genuinely asking. I've never seen somebody who doesn't wear a kippah, who's not an ultra-Orthodox Jew, be interested in a database of 100,000 rabbinical books. And I said, well, I'm a researcher of ancient Jewish sources. All right, no problem. I'm not trying to start a fight. I've just never seen it before. So I get this database, Michael.
Calm down there.
Right, well, I'm Israeli. I get defensive, So I get this database, and I'm asking the question, are there any rabbis who say what the name is? And I think, I don't think there are. If there were, I would have heard about it, right? If somebody's writing a paper, a serious paper in a scholarly journal about how the Gnostic pronounced the name, and I've never read a paper, and I've read, I think, everything there is on the name, just about, in academic scholarship, surely somebody would have published this, right? It must be there, and I would know about it. So I put it's a flash drive, I put it in, it's all in Hebrew. Even the interface is in Hebrew. It doesn't say search, it says chapes, right? So I type it in, and I do a little search, and I'm like, I know I'm not going to find it. Within 30 seconds, I found a rabbi who said the name is Yehovah. Within literally 30 seconds. Within literally 30 seconds, I found a rabbi who said the name, the Shema Mefurash, the explicit name, the unequivocal name, is with the vowels Shva, Cholam, Kamat, and you're going to hear that, guys, over and over today. Shva, Cholam, Kamat, those are the names of the vowels. They have names, the vowels. Shva is that little E in Yehovah. Cholam is the O, and the Kamatz is the A. So this rabbi says unequivocally, without a question, he says, as a matter of fact, yeah, as we know, the vowels are, or he doesn't say as we know, he says the vowels of the name which are Shva, Cholam, Kamatz. He states it matter-of-factly. Within 30 seconds, I found that. And I was sitting there shaking. I didn't think I would find it. And there I found it in 30 seconds. And I realized, if I found this in 30 seconds, and all I did was search in the database. Now, I had to have the database, and I had to be able to read Hebrew and search in Hebrew. But literally, it took me 30 seconds to find it. And what it made me realize is if I could find it in 30 seconds, and nobody's ever talked about this that I've ever read in scholarship. They're talking about the Gnostics, and they're talking about the Greek magical papyri, but not this source. That means nobody's ever looked. Because if they'd looked, they would have found it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have taken them 5 minutes. I'm good. But literally nobody's ever looked to see what do the rabbis say the name is, and why don't they look? So the reason they don't look, and I looked this up in Hebrew Jewish sources, you can't blame the pagans or the Christians or the agnostics for this. This is Jewish Israeli sources, an encyclopedia in Hebrew. And it's saying our rabbis, these are Orthodox Jews writing, saying our rabbis didn't know how to pronounce the name. And they give a source. So what do? I'm a troublemaker. I look up the source. And you know what the source says, Michael? It's a source from around 1750 from a rabbi named Elijah of Vilna. Let me read you what it says. It's pretty cool. Now, he was actually, turns out, the rabbi of my ancestor, of my fifth great-grandfather. My great-great-great-great-grandfather was the #1 disciple of Elijah of Vilna. And what Elijah of Vilna, who's quoted in the encyclopedia as the source that the rabbis don't know the name, what he said was...
Okay, so this is...
This is a rabbi in around 1750, and it's taken as well. The Jews don't know the name, Elijah of Vilna. And he was a brilliant... He's called the Vilna Gaon, which means the genius of Vilna. And if I can find you the source, I can read it to you. And give me a second here. I'm doing my little search here. 1 second. I have like dozens and dozens of sources on my laptop here. And okay, so he says the vowels of the name itself are hidden. Its vowels are the secret of the Tetragrammaton. Okay, so we know that.
Okay.
Meaning the consonants of the Tetragrammaton of the name Yud He Vav He, of the name of the Father, that's not even a question. They're Yud He Vav He. The vowels are the secret of the Tetragrammaton, and he says the vowels of the name itself are hidden. So the modern 20th century encyclopedia written in Hebrew by rabbis say, well, the rabbis didn't know what the vowels were. Is that what he says?
No.
No, he says they're hidden.
Right.
He doesn't say he doesn't know what they are.
Doesn't say don't know how to pronounce it.
He's not saying I don't know how to pronounce it. He's saying this is hidden. We don't reveal this secret, which is a big difference. Now, so I mentioned before that...
So an encyclopedia is where people are getting their information from, and the encyclopedia is incorrectly quoting the source.
Well, no, it's interpreting the source.
Interpreting the source.
And so what I do is I look up the source, and it doesn't say what they claim it says. Now, if that was all the information, you could argue back and forth. Did the rabbis know what the name was, or didn't they know what the name was, right? I mean, here's a rabbi who says it's hidden. Is it hidden to him, or is it just hidden to the public? So, and they transmitted it every 7 years. Surely there must be a trace of that somewhere in Jewish literature, that this ceremony continued of transmitting the name once every 7 years. So, while I was doing this research, I stumbled upon a reference to something called Sefer Hashem, the Book of the Divine Name. It's by a rabbi named Elazar Rokeach, who's known in English usually as Elazar of Worms. Worms is a city in Germany. And this rabbi wrote a book in the year 1225, the Book of the Divine Name. And the amazing thing about this is the book was never printed. And it wasn't printed until the year 2004. So this is a book that remained in handwritten manuscript form even after printing was invented, because it was considered so secret. And it wasn't until the 21st century that somebody decided to, break the secret. I mean, because printing's so easy today, right? Anybody with a desktop computer and literally a physical printer can print a book. And, so someone in 2004 for the first time printed a book from 1225. And so I heard about this Book of the Divine Name, and what it describes in it is the exact type of thing described in the Talmud, but 1,000 years later, a ceremony of transmitting the name.
1,000 years after.
1,000 years after Rabbi Bar Bar Chana saying, sages transmit the name to their disciples, we see how this was done by this rabbi in 1225, and what he describes is this elaborate ceremony. And in the elaborate ceremony, you have a rabbi and a disciple who go through a purification process. They fast, and they immerse themselves in a mikveh of water, and then they don white clothing, and then they do something a little bit strange at first until you read it in Hebrew. And by the way, it was printed for the first time in 2004, after nearly 800 years, and it's never been translated into English. In fact, the general public will hear this text for the first time ever in English. If I read you a little excerpt here, it's never been translated into English.
Okay, so here it is. It's going out to more than 127 countries around the world the first time, and here it is.